is Joe Skipper. I'm the owner of Skipper Realty Group, brokered by eXp Realty, and I'm with my friend Cody Wilhelm with Residential Mortgage. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Good, good. Yeah, so you've got some news out, right? Like, isn't it didn't the feds just
Yeah,
change everything? I know that everyone says the feds are directly related to mortgage rates.
right. Yeah, we
But
finally made it.
it happened, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because when it happened, so if anybody's watching that doesn't know, the Fed dropped interest rates. Finally, we've been waiting for 2 years and we're finally to this point where we've at least seen the first step. And that it sounds like they're projecting to do a couple more maybe this year and then a handful of them next year too. So I won't even say any numbers because it all seems to just kind of ebb and flow with everything. But funny thing is, when the announcement came out and it officially happened, interest rates have gone up. Mortgage interest rates, right? Because the market was already starting to factor it in.
Yep.
And they get so responsive to things that are said that there wasn't a clear cut like we're going to drop it another 50 basis points next month. And so because there wasn't that writing on the wall, the markets were like, hey, maybe we kind of overdid it a little bit. So we've definitely seen an improvement in rates, leading up to that announcement. And then the announcement happens. So then everybody starts to assume that rates are going down another 0.5% from where they have already come down to. And so that's where it ends up getting kind of tricky. And it seems to happen this way all the time, whether they're going up or they're going down. The markets react usually weeks in advance. So by the time the announcement happens, and I think, especially when interest rates are going up, it really is a benefit, especially for the mortgage side, because there would be nothing worse than, you're just finding something, you're ready to lock your rate, and then it's like one morning, boom, they're just up 0.5%. At least it does kind of ease into it, usually over the course of a week or two. But yeah, I feel like we're finally getting to that point where we can start to see more of the light at the end of the tunnel. And now we just need to keep inflation in check and kind of see where it goes from here. But it definitely from a overall interest rate perspective, it does seem like things are starting to improve rather than just kind of the roller coaster up and down. Feels like we've got a new base level and we'll kind of work off that. So I think that feels good for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like a lot of people, we've talked about this and I don't blame them, but it's like people think Feds say this, mortgage rates do this automatically, or it's like Fed, and it really, you've even said this, is like, you guys project a lot. Like as lenders, you project what's going to happen. So really rates kind of started cruising down in anticipation of what the Feds will do, not as a reaction to what the Feds will do,
Right.
to what they just said.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, the average Joe Schmuck sitting on the sidelines waiting, playing the market and being like, I'm waiting for the Feds to like change this, and make the mortgage rates low. It's already done. Like it's already, that's already factored in. Granted, it could continue to go down depending on how things go. But yeah, it's just interesting how, and I get it because it's like no one cares about mortgage rates unless they need it. Like why would they
exactly.
care? So they're not meant to understand or care to understand like the whole nerdy, like, lenders anticipating these, what the Feds are going to do. But you guys are more, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're more proactive to what Feds will do versus reactive to what Feds did, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And we are more or less like, I mean, I can only speak for what I think, not necessarily that I know from like, say, my company's perspective. But it's really just kind of a reaction to the market itself. But yeah, and the markets are essentially predicting what they think is going to happen. Or, there are times where there's a reaction to, when the Fed does come out and talk, and especially in prior months where it wasn't expected that they were going to lower rates, but they would just like break down every little thing that was said. And if there wasn't something that seemed really promising in what they said about, potentially lowering rates, or maybe inflation is kind of getting within range, then the markets react to that. even though nothing was really said of like, yes, we're going to do this. But yeah, it's just it's a lot of um, little comments, little things that are said that people that are way smarter than me look into, and then it's like you see all these changes, and it's always interesting because for years and years it seemed like there really wasn't a whole lot of rate movement, and if there was, it was that they were just slowly working their way down. But overall, nobody really paid attention to mortgage rates because, like, all right, well, they're within a 0.5% range of what they were last year and the year before that. And now I feel like there's been so much more focus on the interest rates, understandably, because they make a huge impact on what your payment is, especially, going up 4 or 5% higher than what they were back in 2020 and 2021. But yeah, I think once we get back down into, another 1%, 1.5% lower, I think we'll start to get back into that range of people. By that time, people are going to be refinancing. They're going to be saving money. I think we're going to slowly work our way back into that, like, interest rates are just what they are.
Yeah.
Because they've come down enough to where it's hopefully made things more affordable instead of like, maybe we can make this work if everything comes together. But yeah.
Yeah, because it's going to take a long time.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take a longer time for people, especially during the COVID times. Like you said, rates always fluctuated, but it was so gradual and so, people just didn't really notice it. But when you go from like such an extreme during COVID to such an extreme post-COVID, now everyone is like on the edge of their seat waiting for rates. And so I think it's good to see that kind of settling down, so that you're right, that not only the people that got into homes and bought homes and sold homes at those low rates, they might start being like, okay, this is now normal. But it takes a while. It takes a while for that like adjustment, it's not like 2 months, or it could take years before this kind of resettles and the waters kind of settle. So it's interesting. But you were saying like there's not much time in this year left, and you were saying they're going to talk about dropping even more.
Yeah, that's what I saw after they announced that they were dropping it 50 basis points or 0.5% this last week. The one of the reports that I saw said that they were anticipating another possibly 50 basis points by the end of the year. So it could be a 0.25% decrease, say in October, and then one in November, or maybe one in November, one in December. And then I saw that same report was saying that they were kind of anticipating 4 to 5 cuts next year, which, usually it's going to be a quarter each.
Yeah.
Unless obviously they're feeling like, hey, we need to drop this. We need to ramp up this lowering of rates. They'll drop it 50 basis points or 0.5%. But that's what it's anticipated at. And I will say that, for at the beginning of the year, this was all the talk of like, when is it going to happen? And are we going to see 1 to 1.5% maybe drop? So if we do end up getting through by the end of the year, dropping, say 1%, even though it's all coming in the last few months of the year, it does feel again promising. And like you said, it's not a quick thing, but if it is a gradual decrease, over the next year and a half, 2 years, whatever that ends up looking like, as much as we'd all much rather have it be like right away, I do think it's for the market itself, for the craziness that would come with it. I think it's a good thing, because I think it would, say they did drop it like 2 points in a matter of a couple months, there would just be a frenzy of people. And, for those of us in the business, sure, that's exciting because there's a lot of activity and a lot of people, but I feel like, we jump right back into bidding wars and chaos. And I think it's kind of nice to slowly watch things transition into that, to where it's like, especially for some of those people that have been waiting for a while. I mean, that would just be such a bummer.
I know.
You're waiting and waiting till things get affordable, and then it's like, oh, hey, it's finally happened. And now you have millions of other people jumping in, and now you're like, now I'm overpaying for stuff.
I know.
Or,
and that's
stuff.
like, it's better. I hope for the sake of the housing market that it does just slowly decrease, because it's just not reasonable. It's not logical. And and what it does is it puts people, especially your people that don't do it very often, are trying to play the market, and it's
Hmm.
not going to benefit them. And that's why I always say, if you can afford it, then go for it,
Yeah.
because it's the time for you. If it's not the time for you, that's totally fine. Wait a year, wait 2 years. But if you're going to play it and try to time this and try to get the, the most smoking deal, it's like, if, you're like, oh, rates are going to go down they'll be down by December. It's like,
Yeah.
cool. But then everyone else is going to pour back in. So you kind of want to
Uh-huh.
be that person that gets in when it's time to get in for
Right.
you. So yeah, it's I get it. I get why
Hmm.
people do it, but it never tends to pay off. It's like, oh, I'm just going to wait till rates get down to closer to 5, and then I'll be
Right.
good. But
Yeah.
everyone's waiting for that,
Yes.
and everyone will then bid up the price of the home because of that.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. And it could be interesting this next year because it always seems like there's a bit of an extra, a little bump in activity that first quarter or so of the year. I think, the holidays are over.
yeah,
People start
yeah,
planning for summer when we can move. Maybe they get a tax return. There's
for
just
sure.
more things that kind of, plus if we do see the rates come down a little bit more this year, and then, say the first part of next year, it could really set up for something interesting. And I guess to say that, I'm completely agreeing with what you were just saying. Like, if it is the right time for you,
Oh man, just
then
do
it's the
it.
right time for you,
Yeah, if it's
regardless
not,
of
it's
if
not.
it's not for
Yeah,
everybody else. It's
for
like,
sure.
I bet there's people out there that bought within the last year that wish they had a better interest rate, but they're like, I am so glad that I
In
was
the
able to
house I
do
want to
this
be in.
now.
Yep.
Refi in a couple years, I could afford it, and I didn't have to go through this crazy bidding war and feel like I,
Yeah.
spent everything that I had to get this. So
Yeah.
it'll
Yeah.
be interesting. What are you
It will be.
seeing as far as listings go? Are you seeing anything, with summer technically being over, back to school? Have you seen any changes, or has it felt like it's slowed down at all yet?
Yeah, I think, like, it's obviously neighborhood dependent and area dependent, but
Hmm.
I think generally speaking, it did slow during that end time. And
Hmm.
there's a little lag. Like, I think everyone thinks summer's a great time, and it's like, it's just there's a little lag of all the stuff that happens, just like in the mortgage industry. And
Yeah.
so, oddly enough, people think fall's like kind of getting into the bad time, and fall's generally a decent time because people get kids in school, the
Hmm.
routines start again, and people can start looking again. It's once you bump up to the December closing times, when
Hmm.
no one wants to close on the
Right.
23rd or the 25th, or
Yeah.
no one wants to be moving into a house, um, a week before Christmas or the
Hmm.
holidays. So, right now is a good time. I think we are seeing people start to creep back in, but again, like the rates, everyone plays those rate games. So
Yeah.
buyers kind of play this, like sitting on the bench waiting for, oh, the Feds are going to do this. It's like,
Uh-huh.
so we are seeing it is slower. Long story short, it's slower generally, but we are seeing things pick up now that schools are in, and things will
Okay.
go. So for October, November, we'll see things pick up slightly, and
Yeah.
then kind of die back down in December,
Uh-huh.
and then ramp back up, like you said, in January, February, when people start kind of getting back into the routine and get
Yeah.
their tax returns and all the stuff, and
Right.
everything's done. So yeah,
Yeah. That New Year's resolution,
yeah, for
everything
sure,
comes in.
for
It's
sure.
like the holidays are over and you're
I
like,
know.
okay, what are my goals for this year?
Yeah,
What are we doing?
exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, on a random side note, that's all I got for you, but it's so funny because you and I, for anyone who's watching, Cody and I tried. So Cody, I tried to record this, like make it a recording, but it's actually live right now, I think. So we're actually
Oh,
live.
perfect. All right, here we
But
go.
we were trying to test different times and to see what you guys wanted to see, or when you wanted to see our pretty little faces. And I think
Yeah.
it's actually going on right now. So hey,
Well,
we'll see
I
if
mean, the demand is
see if
just
they like
off the
it.
charts.
Oh, it's so funny. But Cody and I, with all of our technical stuff, it's awesome. So
Yes.
um
Yep. Yep. We're probably looking at sponsorships here
yeah.
really, really
Yeah,
soon.
we're right there. We're right there. I think
Yeah.
we start wearing the shirts and the different things that represent different companies that want to
Yeah.
sponsor us. Like,
Yeah. I think Nike sponsors me, but I don't know. I don't know if I can say that.
they'll probably just try to sue you now. Like,
Yeah. Sorry. Nike's a great
but
company.
like, yeah, exactly. Okay, well, great, man. I will
Okay.
talk to you next week. Yeah, we still have the podcast out. We're still interviewing some great people. We had
Yep.
someone running for city council in Wilsonville last week, and so that's been posted. We have some other cool ones coming up. So if you want to be on, or if you want to pay attention to those, they're pretty cool and insightful podcasts. But that's Venture with Joe and Cody, yours truly, and my friend Cody. So
yes,
thanks, man.
Thank you.
Okay,
We'll see
chat
you
later.
here soon.
Okay, see ya.
All right, see ya.